career stages.
Yep.
So I want to ask you exactly that.
See if I can remember.
I hope you can remember, or else my question will be. So, why guitar, and what inspired you to pick it up in the first place?
Why guitar? Well, actually, when I was really little, I wanted to be a dancer.
Okay. Okay. What kind of dance?
I loved Michael Jackson when I was a kid, and then break dancing. And I guess when I started listening to more Michael Jackson, I noticed there was these like crazy guitar solos that were happening every now and then. And then I got a Alice Cooper cassette tape as a gift. I mean, this is when I'm really young, like 6 years old.
Oh, you said you're jamming with your friends, right? Do you still remember the first song that you cover with your first band?
Covered, yeah. Yep, actually it was the first hardcore band I ever heard. And it's interesting because they're not I mean, people know them, but they're not like super popular in I guess the hardcore world. But it was a band from Sweden called Raised Fist.
Raised Fist.
Raised Fist, yeah.
I'll check them out.
Yep. And so we were covering Raised Fist in my garage. And then before I Killed the Prom Queen, I had another band in high school with a couple guys, and we were trying to play like Poison the Well and bands like that. You know, we had discovered that kind of melodic screamo hardcore, and that just lit a new fire for me. You know, those kind of sounds were really new and exciting. And then basically, I started I Killed the Prom Queen.
When the moment you told yourself that, okay, this is music is going to be my thing. When's that?
I don't know that I had like a lightning bolt moment. I do remember that's all I wanted to do, and I remember being really worried that's all I wanted to do. You know, like we were playing shows around Australia at this point with I Killed the Prom Queen, and trying to just figure out how to make money and survive. And I had a couple like random jobs in between tours and working in like a grocery store and like a corner store and things like that. I guess it was probably the first time we went to the US to tour in 2004. Because that's when we were making good money touring Australia and realizing that it could be used to fund getting us around the rest of the world. So we got our first US tour, we got the first album, When Goodbye Means Forever, got signed to an American label, and that kind of feels like a big deal, especially at that point in time. So
that is a big deal.
Yeah.
That is a big deal.
This is probably somewhere between 2004 and 2006 where I was like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm not making it like a great deal of money. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm making enough where I don't want to have to try and figure out what jobs I'm going to do when I get home from tour.
I see.
I think, and probably most bands will say this, but I think we got really lucky with timing, that what we were doing wasn't really brand new, but it was definitely new for Australia. And it was also a long time before anybody else outside of Australia really cared about Australian music. And I remember trying to get our second album signed to a label. Again, we raised the money ourselves, we paid for it, everything was self-funded. And we were sending a finished album out to labels saying like, it's done, like this is it, it's really good, it sounds great, you should release it, you don't have to do anything. We did all the work for you, you just have to
need to release it
into a plastic disc. And the labels were like, who are you? Like, no one's heard of any Australian bands at that time. This was 2005. I forget the question. What was the question again? I ramble a lot. I'm so sorry, guys. Here, I'm listening to dribble.
My question is the formula.
The formula. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it wasn't. We just had a couple bands that we really loved and looked up to musically, and we, in trying to sound sort of like them, we, I guess, found our own sound in that process. And yeah, it just hadn't really been done in Australia at that point. So we, fortunately, got categorized as like one of the early, I guess, like metalcore influential bands, just for doing it that early. A number of reasons. At the time, it was very difficult to completely sustain myself living in the US alone. You know, no kind of parents to go and mooch off or anything. So it was like financial struggles. I didn't feel at home in California at that time. It took me like a long while to feel at home there, and then I moved there again and lived there for many years. And the timing was interesting because I had decided to leave Bleeding Through when I joined Bring Me the Horizon, but I hadn't actually left Bleeding Through, so there was this weird like crossover. But the Bring Me the Horizon thing was like a complete fluke as well. You know, we had toured together in Australia for the Say Goodbye tour, and then the year before that we toured with them in the UK, 2007. And so I knew the guys.
Working with different people, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a different vibe when I joined the other bands because I was the new guy, you know,
Yeah.
and they already had their process and I was coming in and trying to figure out where I fit into that. But it was pretty simple. I mean, Bleeding Through just used to set up in a rehearsal room and like play songs and ideas live at the time. And when I joined Bring Me the Horizon, the first album I did with them was pretty much the same. We had a big house that we rented in Scotland, and we set up all the gear. But at that time, we were also just starting to transition to like recording on computers and editing and simple demos and programmed drums and things like that. So.
In Bring Me the Horizon, you write There Is a Hell album, right?
Yes, I wrote that.
There Is a Hell and Sempiternal?
Sempiternal, I had some involvement, but not as much as There Is a Hell.
So, what is your favorite song?